Honorable guests and friends, Vanakkam. Unfortunately, I am odd man out here. You might get an impression with Vanakkam that I am going to speak in Tamil. No. Unfortunately, I do not know Tamil. So, what I had done is that I had a written speech and I had handed over to Ananda Vikatan for translation. They were to deliver that out here, but probably for paucity of time, it may not be done so. But later on, you might get a chance to see it in Tamil. Well, at the outset, let me express my heartfelt gratitude to Ananda Vikatan for inviting me to speak at this solemn occasion. I must also congratulate them for having brought this beautiful volume on Babasaheb Ambedkar as Talaivar of all people, leader of all people, and not Dalit alone. It is very important to stress that Ambedkar had a universalist vision. It is not. For quite some time, people confined him to just Dalit universe, but it is not so. He had a universalist vision, and actually all that he did was towards emancipation of mankind. I hope this volume will be welcomed by those who have curiosity about knowing what Ambedkar's thoughts are and what he did. It's a kaleidoscopic kind of thing, including interviews, articles, etc. Today marks the death anniversary of Babasaheb Ambedkar. It's called Mahaparinirvan in Maharashtra, and we solemnly observe it. Generally, as a family people, we go to Chaitya Bhumi, all people for that matter, but we go at midnight to pay our homage to him. And you might know many people from Tamil Nadu also congregate there. About 2 million people congregate. There might be 20 lakhs people at Chaitya Bhumi today in Bombay. That apart, no matter where we are, this day calls for reflection on his towering legacy and challenges we face in realizing his vision. Ambedkar's vision may arguably be condensed into a single word, and that single word is democracy. And we know democracy is suffering assaults from all directions today. The international watchdog institutions that monitor state of democracy in countries world over have been downgrading us on the scale of democracy during last 10 years. In 2021, Freedom House had dropped India's rating from free to partly free. The only remaining category is not free. The same year, the varieties of democracy, popularly called VDEM project, relegated India to the status of electoral autocracy. On a scale of close autocracy, electoral autocracy, electoral democracy, or liberal democracy. And the economist intelligence until a unit moved India into the flawed democracy. India's democratic downgrading moved 1.4 billion people of the world, 8 billion people, into the category of autocratizing countries. It dropped from free to partly free, finally halved the share of the world's living in a free country. The attack on democracy can well be construed as direct attack on the vision of Babasaheb Ambedkar. Indeed, the most pressing challenge before us today is the survival of democracy in this country. While Ambedkar is universally recognized as one of the architects of our constitutional democratic state, few truly grasps his profound and transformative understanding of democracy. Because the manner in which his constitution manifested in practice may be better described as plutocracy, a government controlled by wealthy, or even kleptocracy, where the ruling oligarchy exploits the nation's resources for personal gains. The uncritical acceptance that the Constitution is given by Babasaheb Ambedkar and what is going on is according to this Constitution creates an impression in most people's mind that what we have is the democracy of his conception. Nothing may be farther from the truth. Ambedkar's vision of democracy was radically different. We all know, as tutored from school days, Abraham Lincoln's definition of democracy as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. World over, this is the default definition of democracy, and even Ambedkar used it many times. But he was not fully satisfied with it. His discomfort with the definition was on account of quote-unquote people. Who were these people? He found it problematic assuming the people as homogeneous entity. Could a society as fragmented as ours, divided by caste, religion, tribe, and ethnicity, claim to be speaking in the name of people? Therefore, he saw democracy not merely as a form of government, but as a mode of associated living, a conjoined, communicated experience. These Duiven terms reinforce the idea suggesting that democracy involves a collective sharing of ideas, perspectives, and life experiences among diverse members of society. This kind of thing is not possible in a caste society, which is characterized by ascending scale of reverence and descending scale of contempt. Ambedkar firmly believed that caste and democracy were inherently incompatible. For him, the annihilation of caste was essentially to achieving a truly democratic society. His lifelong crusade against the caste system needs to be understood in this universalist perspective. Ambedkar expanded his vision of democracy further. He said his vision of democracy was rooted in his ideal of good society, based on the principle of liberty, equality, and fraternity. A democracy for him was a means as well as end of this ideal. End because it is coterminous with the realization of this principle, liberty, equality, and fraternity, and means because it is through democracy that these ideals are attainable. The world knows these principles were originated during the French Revolution as its inspiring slogan. However, he declared that he had not taken them from French Revolution. He took them from the teachings of the Buddha. Ambedkar emphasized that liberty without equality leads to the domination of the privileged few. Equality without liberty stifles individual freedom, and fraternity is the binding force that harmonizes the two. This interplay of principles, he argued, was the foundation of a democratic society. Ambedkar further stretched the definition of democracy to a social practice. He defined democracy as a form and a method of government whereby revolutionary changes in the economic and social lives of people are brought about without bloodshed. In order to effectuate democracy, he outlined 5 conditions. 1. Elimination of glaring social inequalities. 2. A robust and independent opposition. 3. Equality before the law and the administration. 4. Adherence to constitutional morality. And 5. Development of public conscience. He willed that the Constitution should provide for these conditions to prevail. How far our Constitution, which is attributed to him, succeeded in providing for these conditions is a mute question. He himself had to painfully note in his last speech before the Constituent Assembly that the Constitution has only provided the political equality and did not touch upon the economic and social inequalities. He explained that the Constitution has established only political democracy, which could not endure without social and economic democracy. In his final address to the Constituent Assembly, he warned, on 26 January 1950, we are going to enter a life of contradiction. In politics, we have equality, but in social and economic life, we will have inequality. How long shall we continue to live this life of contradictions? If we deny equality in our social and economic lives for long, we'll do so only by putting our political democracy in peril. Regrettably, his warning went unheeded. The ruling classes, exploiting the spaces left in the Constitution, entrenched their dominance. Within 2 years of his implementation, Ambedkar expressed disillusionment with the Constitution. In a discussion in Rajya Sabha in 1952, he responded to a member, "People always keep on saying to me, 'Oh, you are the maker of the Constitution.' My answer is, I was a hack. What I was asked to do, I did much against my will." He further added, and I quote, "My friends tell me that I have made the Constitution, but I am quite prepared to say that I shall be the first person to burn it out. I do not want it does not suit anybody." It was a clear expression of the disappointment how the Constitution unfolded into practice. Baba Sahib Ambedkar's unwavering commitment to rationality and the scientific spirit was another cornerstone of his democratic vision. He viewed rationality as essential for public debate and ethical governance, warning that propaganda and irrational dogmas, especially those perpetuating caste, were tools of subjugation. Rationality, he argued, was not just intellectual but also ethical, fostering a society where power was exercised with accountability. The Hindutva movement, however, represents a direct assault on Ambedkar's vision. Disguised as a call for Hindu or national unity, it seeks to restore Brahminical dominance by undermining rationality and fostering obscurantism. From promoting pseudoscience to rewriting history, these efforts attack the very foundations of a rational and democratic society. Ambedkar also laid bare the moral failure of caste, stating in Annihilation of Caste, and quote, "Caste has killed public spirit. Caste has destroyed the sense of public charity. Caste has made public opinion impossible. Virtue has become caste-ridden and morality has become caste-bound." He found an ethical framework for democracy as the Buddha's Dhamma, a code of reason and compassion. Yet, he cautioned that democracy required constant vigilance. Even under universal suffrage, the privileged could manipulate democratic processes to maintain their dominance, and he presciently observed, I quote, "It is a hard fact of history that in every country there exist two classes, the governing class and the servile class, between whom there is a continuous struggle for power. Adult suffrage and frequent elections are no bar against the governing class reaching places of power and authority." Precisely that is happening today as we experience. In his States and Minorities, Ambedkar proposed a socialist framework. This ruling class, to dislodge the ruling class and achieve economic and social democracy. However, it died stillbirth. His vision was sidelined, leaving India with a democracy that remains incomplete and compromised. Even in his maiden speech in the Constituent Assembly on 17 December 1946, he observed on Nehru's proposal of objective resolution. Basically, what he said that Nehru proposed that the new state would do economic, social, and political justice to people, and Ambedkar wondered how this justice could be done unless the society is socialistic. Today we face growing inequalities in every sphere, while the caste inequalities, even in its crudest form of untouchability, which was outlawed in the Constitution, still survive. The economic inequalities have surpassed all that ever existed in history. Today, in terms of wealth inequality, the top 1% of India's population holds over 40% of total wealth, while the bottom 50% collectively own only 3%. India ranks among the most unequal countries globally, with wealth inequality rising in recent decades. In terms of income inequality, according to the World Inequality Database 2022, the top 10% earn 57% of national income, while the bottom 50% share less than 13%. Besides, there is inequality in terms of regional disparities, rural versus urban divide, gender inequalities, and so on and so forth. Suffice it to say that inequality in India today exceeds even that during the colonial times. Other erosions of democracy in terms of trampling of the Constitution, subjugating the institutional structure, using laws to curb people's liberties, silencing opponents with threats of arrest, incarcerating human rights defenders as terrorists and anti-nationals, and polarizing polity, unleashing worst forms of oppression on minorities, particularly Muslims. The regime's chosen other cannot be captured in any form indexing that downgraded us on a democratic scale. Indeed, we have traversed light years away from Baba Saheb's vision. While shouting all kinds of encomiums to him, there is no bigger insult to his legacy than the behavior of rulers today. I know we cannot do much than reminding ourselves of the gap between Ambedkar's vision and our reality. I believe the realistic understanding of this fact itself may inspire us to work toward a democracy that truly embodies liberty, equality, and fraternity. A democracy that dismantles caste and builds a just and equitable society. Thank you for patience hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.